whenever you want. Thank you guys for coming today and for being here to listen to Miss Tyra. And she is gonna tell us about herself today. And Tyra, you are more than welcome to get started whenever. And the meeting usually is around 50 minutes, but you're welcome to cut it shorter or cut it longer, whichever you would like.
Great. And if you guys lose my presentation, what I was thinking is we would just do a Q&A. And I'm going to give you guys a little, my first slide, as you can see, is just kind of questions for marketers. And my background is primarily in product management and marketing, and so I'll kind of pepper it with stories as we go out. And so what I wanted to do was basically focus on questions that you guys have just around marketing in general. So this first slide, is just a little bit about my background. Is I graduated from BYU in English. And I have a really varied background. And I will say, if I had to do it again, I would be a marketing major. I work in marketing now and have for the past 7 years. I started out as a technical writer, then transitioned into curriculum development, was a product manager, was a marketing manager, and now I'm a program manager. I've worked at startups and Fortune 50 companies, and I currently work in corporate citizenship for a Fortune 50 tech company in a marketing/program management role. So I'm happy, like I said, to answer any questions you have, but I thought what we would do is kick it off and talk a little bit about what kind of drives us with marketing and product design. And I bring up this famous Albert Einstein quote because, and I'll read you guys the quote because it's my Zoom just went out. It is the famous quote on insanity, which says, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results." And so for me, it's really important to be able to pivot and be able to do something different. And I'm going to go back and share my screen again because it looks like we lost the presentation. So let me go back and share this again so we can go ahead and see the screen again. Okay, so are you guys now seeing the screen that talks about product design?
No, we are not seeing it.
Which screen? Are you seeing my screen at all, or is it gone?
Your screen is completely gone right now. We can see your face, and then that's all.
Okay. Let me go back and share my screen again. Okay. Are we seeing my screen now or no?
No, we are not.
Okay, then I'm just going to kind of throw away the PowerPoint presentation and just kind of go through and we'll have a conversation. And you guys can ask me questions. Please go ahead and stop me whenever you have a question that you want to go ahead and ask, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So the first thing that I want to talk about with insanity is that famous Albert Einstein quote, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So for me, that means we've got to be able to learn how to pivot whenever we're doing product design or in marketing or going in and doing something entirely different. So to focus on product design, I was a product manager for many years, focusing on supply chain products. And one of the things that I would do is I would go out to places and meet with software developers. I would meet with product users, and I would ask them, what are your needs? And so for me, I'd gather kind of what were their needs. And so when we look at product design, is what problem are you trying to dissolve? What problem are you trying to solve? And so if you're trying, when we were designing products, if we weren't solving a problem, what was the purpose of creating the product? And the second thing we would ask Is it practical? Because a lot of times you'll see a problem out there and it's not necessarily practical to solve the problem. And then the next thing, the third thing we always ask ourselves is it marketable? Can I actually take this product to market? So any questions so far on this?
Do you have an example? Hey, Tyra, how's it going? It's Ann Springer.
Yes.
Sorry you're having technical issues today.
That's okay.
I was just going to say, do you have an example about what
I
you
do.
just... Oh,
I
perfect.
do.
Okay.
So one of the things that I did as a product manager, so I was a product manager for this Fortune 50 tech company in product design. And my best thing that I did is I walked the grounds. You guys have all probably eaten a Tootsie Roll, correct? Is I walked the grounds of Tootsie Roll in their warehouse, and we would talk about how to deliver and ship their products. And so I was able to go to Tootsie Roll and see how all of their Tootsie Rolls were made. So I can actually tell you how the Tootsie Roll gets to the center of the Tootsie Pop. And so they were having issues with how they would ship their product from one location to another location. And we would actually talk to them and see how we can make it better on delivering their product from, like, say, to a Walmart or to a dollar store, and how, like, it depends on a different time of a year. So sometimes in one time of year it's easier to get there, or in terms of, like, Halloween is their biggest time to buy Tootsie Rolls. And so we would actually go through and figure out the shipping times to be able to solve that problem for them. Another customer I worked with was Beckman Coulter, and Beckman Coulter is a medical device company. And they had problems in their warehouse where they would have different products that needed to be heated, they needed to be cooled, and they would have need to be able to be temperature controlled. So what we would have to be able to do is to design the product. We were working on an inventory management system and a warehouse management system. So we would have to be able to put features into that product to be able to design for temperature controls. So we're trying to solve for a problem, and then be able to make sure that in terms of where I was working, where software, that actually fits that solution. So does that make sense to everybody? Yes, no? Any questions? Okay, yay. I'm seeing Cameron give me a thumbs up. So any more questions so far we can answer on this? Because I'm going to go into marketing next. So if you've got any product design questions, solutions for product or stuff like that, we can talk about that now. And I see in chat here, let me see. Okay, perfect. Okay, so a lot of what I do now is marketing. So how many of you guys, I'm going to go back to viewing everybody else. How many of you guys are marketers, are interested in marketing? We're quiet today.
We were raising our hands, but there was at least, like, I think most, at least half of us probably raised their hands.
Okay, perfect.
Like 7 of us.
7 of you guys. Okay. So does anybody if anybody wants to shout out, what areas of marketing are you guys interested in? Or you can type them in the chat because I can see the chat.
So I'm currently focusing on social media marketing. Part of my job right now is I am running a social media page on both Instagram and Facebook for BYU. It's just like a marketing page where I share like tips and tricks and whatnot. So that's part of my job as my teaching assistant job right now, which has been super fun. And I graduate next semester. So things are starting to get real. And I'm looking around for jobs and whatnot. But yeah, so I'm focusing on social media marketing mostly.
So what other areas of marketing is everybody focused on? Anybody else want to share besides Sophie?
I know for me, this is Logan. I don't know if other people relate to this, but I feel like I don't have enough experience to firmly say, oh yeah, like brand management, or hey, loyalty marketing, or hey, like one specific like kind of marketing I'm like super focused on. I think I'm more open to try an area of marketing and just kind of play by experience, just because I don't have enough experience to definitively say like one way or the other.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else wanna comment or ask a question, or before we go into a little bit more of kind of some of the different areas of marketing that I have experience in that we can ask, or do you guys want to go a little bit further so we can ask some questions?
I have a quick question, just real small.
Yeah. Yeah.
What goes on behind the scenes when a new design just totally fails? For example, Tropicana, they sell orange juice, that iconic orange. I think like 2 years ago or so, they tried to rebrand it with like a different design and lost like 50 mil in like 2 months. Huge failure. What goes on behind the scenes after that happens?
And I will say I'm not a brand manager, but I am very familiar with that case in brand management. I think I'm going to talk a little bit, and Anne, maybe you want to jump in here for a second because I don't know what the program focus is, but there are two areas of marketing, and it's B2B and B2C. And B2B marketing is where my particular area of focus is business to business. And then the Tropicana case you're talking about is B2C marketing. And when we market a little bit differently. So for example, in B2B marketing, I can actually go directly to my customer and talk to my actual customer about their wants and needs. In a B2C marketing case, like in the case of Tropicana, you can't necessarily go directly to your customer. Like you can run focus groups or research groups, but you can't go and directly talk to the customer like I did in the case of Tootsie Roll to ask them exactly what their wants and needs are. Does that make sense? And so that's why when they did the brand, it would be a little bit different. And that's not necessarily my area of expertise in terms of B2B versus B2C. And if you guys want to jump into that, I can explain. This next question I absolutely can't answer about the marketing fair. That actually is where my area of expertise actually lies, is in terms of email campaigns, email marketing, and target marketing. And so we can actually talk to that a little bit about that. We can talk about it in terms of a programmatic rollout or in terms of market segmenting. And so, Garnet, do you want to particularly ask that question, or is there an area of focus you want me to concentrate on with those?
Sure. So I know that in marketing, in the current situation I'm in, we have two sorts of audiences. We have the guests that we're trying to invite into the career fair, and then we have the students who we're trying to help to keep aware and have them participate, so our efforts aren't in vain. So I want to know more specifically about what you do to invite guests in to make it worth it for the students to join.
Yeah, so I do what's called, I'm a line of business center at my company for our email marketing campaigns. So I run the entire email marketing campaign platform for our company. And we do what's called target marketing, which is actually really an interesting way to market. So we do an email campaign that is directly focused on, so we would run two campaigns, one to your students per se, and we segment it and we make our messaging particular to your students. And then another one that you would do would be one focused directly to the companies, inviting them to join. And so you segment your lists and you segment your market, and so you're tailoring your marketing based on who your audience is. And I think that's where my background as an English major comes in, as I learned how to write for my audience. So some of the best advice I can give you guys as marketing majors is understand who your audience is, what you're trying to market to them, and why you're marketing in that way. So how you're writing to a company to invite them to be part of your career fair is going to be different than inviting your students to participate. So what I would do would think about the 3 key points that you're trying to message to them, write it in a very succinct way, like write it by bullet points, and then think about your students. So someone like me as a company is going to maybe, you're going to market to me, what's the message you're going to market to me to? Are you going to market to me via email? Are you going to market to me via LinkedIn? Like, what are the ways that you're going to get to a company? Because someone in that demographics may be going to be a little bit older, a little bit more established, and what they're going to use is going to be different than a student who you may get on social media, you may get on a flyer, you may get on Instagram or TikTok, or in different ways. So you want to think about your messaging and your platforms in terms of that way. I've actually used agencies before, but not, we've actually paid an agency, a third-party vendor to market for us, but I've actually never worked at an agency. So you can use agencies. If you have a budget to actually market on an agency, you can pay for ads to actually market via Facebook. But a lot of it, if you like to look at search engine optimization, a lot of it you can do for free, but that's for a little bit later on. And we can talk about event marketing was also a lot of what I do as well. So we can talk about event marketing too. So anything else, like I'm seeing the questions pull in. So anything else you guys want to talk about? But Garnet, does that answer your question in terms of how you would market that? Oh, he's on mute. So any other questions?
I was just going to answer your other question about where our focus is in our program. I would say we're very B2C focused. So I think some of the things that you can talk about with the B2B would be really fascinating. So
yeah, so do you want me to go through how we do B2B marketing? Because I can talk through that.
Sure.
So B2B marketing is very, very different from B2C marketing. So we do business-to-business marketing. So we have direct access to our customer. So I work, like I said, for a Fortune 50 tech company. So our customers would be primarily, like every customer you think of is a customer of mine. So like Google's a customer of mine, like the church is a customer of mine, American Airlines, United Airlines, the Golden State Warriors, the Lakers. You can't name a company who's not a customer of mine. And if you want to see, I'm not going to mention where I work. If you want to see where I work, you can actually look on LinkedIn and it'll tell you where I work. And so what it is in terms of business to business, we're able to go in and talk to who our customers are, find out who they are and what they need. And so we're able to work directly to them. What we have is we have a dedicated sales force that goes out and actually sells directly to them. So we don't run ads on television. We don't. We do have a big social media presence. We do market on LinkedIn, but we don't run any commercials. Like you won't see my company mentioned on commercials. It's not how we market. So our target audience would be like your CIO or your people that work in technology. That's kind of the space we operate in. And so when we're looking at our customer, we can engage with our customer on a regular basis. So we do a lot of email marketing. We do a lot of social media marketing. And so we're able to talk to them. And so when we're launching a new product, we're able to actually go through and run pilots and focus groups and user groups and to talk to them about exactly what they're looking for and exactly what they want. And so we're able to narrow in what they're looking for. And so when we're looking at our brand and our brand management, it's easier. And that's like I said, that's not my area, but we're able to focus in on who they are, what they're looking for, and what they need on our many, many different product lines. So it's very different from B2C, And we do a lot of quantitative research. So we do qualitative, but we do a lot of quantitative research as well. So I spend a lot of my time in analytics. So I'm able, when I run an email marketing campaign, I'm able to go through and look at my open rates, my click-throughs, and to be able to see what my exact engagements are. We also, as a B2B marketing company, we do a ton of events. So I do a lot of event marketing. So we go to conferences. So we go to conferences and we're able to talk to people at conferences. So we do a lot of project management and event planning as well. And so we're able to talk to our customers at events. So it's a very different type of marketing from B2C marketing. It's not like a brand manager role. It's typically a program manager or a product manager role. They also call it product marketing, if that makes sense. Okay. So
Tyra,
yes.
Sorry, I had a question for you. I know you mentioned that email marketing. How do you focus your acquisition efforts on gathering more and more emails? Because I know that's kind of a struggle for some companies. I was wondering how the best strategies you found to do that.
So there's a couple
since
different
that
ways.
Is so huge.
We actually do list buy, so you can actually, there are vendors that you can actually go through and buy lists from. And being that we're in B2B marketing, we can actually buy lists of specific titles of names. So if I'm looking for the title of software developer, if I'm looking for the name of a CIO, or if I'm looking for a particular title in a particular industry, so I can go in and say, I'm looking for a CIO in the automotive industry, or I'm looking for a supply chain expert in the automotive industry. There are vendors, Dun & Bradstreet in particular is one of them, where you can actually go through and their whole job is to compile lists for you, where you can actually go and buy those lists. And so email acquisition is easier in the business-to-business space, I think, than it is in the business-to-consumer space. And
awesome.
We can talk about email marketing. It's actually different in different countries. United States actually has one of the most, and we're going to get into privacy here in a little bit for a second. That's called opt-in versus opt-out. So in the United States, I'm sure you guys have all seen emails when you get them. It's called unsubscribe, which means you no longer want to get it. So a lot of times you'll be getting emails from places you never subscribed from, and it's because they've acquired your list. In Europe, in Asia, in some of the Latin America companies, it's called GDPR. They actually have an opt-out, an opt-in, which means you have to specifically have agreed to have received an email from them, and those are some of the laws that have passed. So it actually costs more. It's actually a harder email acquisition outside of the U.S. than it is inside of the U.S., even in B2B companies. So does that answer your question in terms of email acquisition?
Yeah, definitely. And what kind of data do you normally rely on? I know you said you're really data heavy. What kind of data do you use to segment those kind of campaigns?
So I use a couple different things. So I work in education at the moment, so I'm looking at job title. I'm looking at what they particularly teach. We can go down really low and really detailed level in terms of segmentation. I go down into geography. I love segmentation. So I go down into geography. I go down into what they particularly teach. I go down into their area of what they're interested in. So I go down and I do a matching of product to my particular audience. And you can actually do it pretty easily if you know your product really well. You can actually and if you know your audience and what you're looking for, you can actually, and we call them personas in marketing. You can actually, if you know what your persona is, you can actually track them and do a campaign at that level and say, if I'm looking for a software developer that programs in Java, that lives in Southern California, I can create a marketing campaign targeted to that exact person. Yeah. And then what you do is you go back into your analytics on the other side of it is I can open it up and say, okay, how successful was my marketing campaign? Did they open it? Did they click it? Did they respond back? And it goes back into your CRM system, and you can see, okay, did they watch the video that I sent them? Did they click on my website? And all of that is tracked back into your analytics, and then it goes into your lead flow, into your CRM system.
Awesome. That's really good to know. Thank you so much. Garnet actually had another question with that acquisition. He asked, so he told a story how he's like helping his auntie with like her marketing for her restaurant business, and his question was, could you share like your experiences in discovering the differences and how you attract clients from the US as compared to like overseas, like international clients? Like, what's the main differences there?
So the difference is, let me look. I've not got a background in a restaurant. I can actually see the questions. Let me read it for just a second. The U.S. market is, depending on what your market is, can be a little bit more difficult because we are so much more advanced in terms of who we are, what we know. And so when I've seen, like, my team is global, but I am U.S. based. So the team I work on is global. When we roll out a new product, adoption is easier and faster in some of the emerging markets, depending on what the product is. And so I think the best thing to do is to do your product research and to see if the product that you're offering is available in your market. Is there market saturation? Are people interested in your product? And what's it like? And especially if you're doing like SEO and SEO optimization in Google and Yelp, is it primarily used where you're at? Like, I know I'm in Utah. I'm in Silicon Slopes actually, and I moved there from the Bay Area. We're very much users of Yelp. We're using all of those things. But if I'm coming from like Omaha, Nebraska, or if I'm coming from like Boise, Idaho, where my parents live, is Yelp used there? Do they use Facebook? Are those tools used in terms of, and do you want to spend your SEO optimization if that market is not something where those tools are used? If that makes sense. So I would look in Naples, Italy, to see if there is those adoption of those products. I would also, especially if it's in the last like year or so, we did have some team members in Italy, and they were really affected by COVID. And so if it's in the past like 6 months to a year, I would look at how Italy has been affected. Like, they were on lockdowns for over a year, and so I would basically throw away 2020 and just kind of relook again, because they're just barely now starting to open up with everything with the shots happening and the vaccines and things along those lines. I would really kind of pay attention to what some of the trends are and looking at her competitors and things like that, and just kind of take everything into consideration in terms of how you market and what have other businesses in that area been successful with. Okay.
Cameron, I saw that you had a question. Did you want to ask it, or you want Logan?
Yeah, I'll go. I can ask it. So how do you market a B2B company or business on social media? So I feel like it's really easy to do that B2C, but
yeah, I've built, for my line of business, about 6 or 7 years ago, we built our social media strategy for my line of business and then the company I work with. We looked at our target market, right? And so we do have Facebook pages, we do have Instagram, we do have a YouTube channel, and we put those out there and we create content. We have blogs and we link them from our main website. And so we push it out through those ways. And so a lot of it is primarily tied to our email campaigns. And you'll see at the bottom of most, especially B2B companies, you'll see follow us on Twitter. Oh, we also have Twitter, so I have a pretty big Twitter following as well. So you'll see like follow us on Twitter. You'll see like follow us on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. We do a lot of that, and we do a lot of content pushing out. So it's a lot of pushing out white papers. It's a lot of pushing out webcasts and podcasts. I run a webcast series over Zoom, funnily enough, where we actually bring in guest speakers, we bring in faculty to talk about specific topics, and we bring in experts that talk about specific things, and we push all those things out via social media. We know social media is, a lot of it is students that are that more primarily participate in social media. So we do market sometimes directly to students, but not as much. In terms of the bigger company as a whole, different lines of business have different social media presence. So we probably have dozens and dozens of Twitter accounts and LinkedIn accounts and Instagram accounts that operate under the whole. So we have like B2B companies have, huge organizations responsible for social media. It's just a little bit different in terms of the content. And you can go on and look if you know what some of the main B2B companies are and just kind of see how they do social media differently. They do it more like marketing of white papers and content and things along those lines. So that what they market is a little bit different. It's more of a let me help you to make your business stronger in kind of a way that it is, instead of buy my product. So they're marketing to other businesses instead of marketing directly to a consumer. And then my Zoom went down and it's coming back. So any other, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome. So yeah, I keep asking questions. I love answering questions. It helps me to answer questions because I don't know what you guys want to learn about, and so I'm happy to answer questions. I also, like I said, I run events, so if anybody has questions about event marketing, I've run events for hundreds of people. I've run events for small, like webcasts for like 10. I've run in-person, large, huge in-person events at conferences. So if anybody's interested in event marketing, I'm happy to go through event marketing as well and how we do that.
Tyra, I just want to say that you're awesome. And I love that you reference white papers because that's an assignment in one of my classes. And I love when I hear like our speakers share things from the real world that we're doing in the classroom. I'm like, I hope everyone hears that. And they're like, yes, I know what a white paper is. I've created one. So I hope it makes you guys feel better about it too. Like the things we're doing really are relevant to the real world. So, and I love event marketing. Can you tell us, I think somebody else had a question, and you're welcome to dive into the chat as well. I think there's questions in there, but I was going to say about event marketing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you think the future is with event marketing? Because it's been such a wild year, obviously, like it's thrown, like that was such a huge growing thing. And then it just like, everybody was like, what?
Yeah, and then my Zoom just died. So I'll address the white paper thing pretty quickly, and then I'm going to dive into event marketing. Because I can tell you exactly where I think the trends are going, just based on what I have personally experienced in the past year, and some of our vendors have explained to us in the past like few weeks even. So I've personally written, and I'm grateful for my English degree. And I'll tell you, part of the reason I was able to get into product management and marketing was because I knew how to write. A lot of product managers, they were designers, they were programmers, they couldn't write. So a lot of what I did was I wrote white papers, and I've written a ton of white papers. And the more you can write white papers and thought leadership pieces, that is amazing. And it's like this weird, we have a marketing content writer on her team. Her writing is very different from mine. She is very much a marketing sales writer, where I am a marketing white paper writer, and it is absolutely two different skills. And I think they're both very, very valuable and things that we should absolutely be able to do. And if you're going into B2B marketing or interested in B2B marketing, it is something that that you should know how to do. So any questions on white papers? And then I do want to spend my remaining 15 minutes on event marketing, because I think, like Ann said, it's very important that we talk about these trends, because COVID has killed us, and there are some things that we're seeing in event marketing. Okay, I'm going to jump into event marketing. So my main job for the past 2 years with the program management is I did a lot of event marketing. I worked on a big, huge program at our company that brought in hundreds and hundreds of people for 6 years, and it was canceled last year. We didn't even make it virtual. We're not doing it this year. And so about 2 years ago, I went into webcasting, and we'd on and off toyed with webcasting for the past 3 years. And prior to COVID, on a webcast, I would have about 300 people register, and we would have about a 20% drop-off. I ran a webcast yesterday, and I had 75 people registered, and I had 20 people show up. And we talk about how all of the conferences, so all the conferences last year for B2B marketing, B2B business were canceled. In this year, we're kind of seeing a similar thing where there are no in-person conferences. We're going to virtual, but what my boss and I have talked about it, and we're calling it Zoom burnout and COVID burnout. So while it is going towards a Zoom and a online event, we're starting to see burnout in event marketing. I don't know when it is going to come back, and I don't know if in-person events or in-person conferences, when it comes back, what it will look like. But the trends we are seeing are virtual for now, but we are seeing burnout in those trends. Does that make sense so far to everybody?
I have Zoom burnout.
I have Zoom burnout. I have Zoom burnout. I'm not going to lie.
So what does it mean to webcast versus, is that just fancy for Zoom?
Well, it's different. So I wish I could show you guys. So when I run a webcast, I actually have this huge registration flow tied into an email marketing campaign. So what I can do is I can target my invites on an email marketing campaign, send somebody to a landing page, invite them to register for a webcast, send them to a registration flow, and have them come in as a lead in my marketing system, and if they'd watch that webcast. If they attended the webcast, they'll get a thank you for watching my webcast recording. If they registered but did not attend, what they'll get is a "we missed you" email, all from my targeted email marketing system. It's a really cool platform, and that's kind of when we look at online events, that's kind of what online marketing or online event marketing looks like right now. It's kind of tying that into your CRM system with lead flow. We can do similar, when we would do in-person events, we would have similar registration flows so we can track who's coming, how much they've paid, if they'd attended, and check-in systems. So our registration systems and such were similar with in-person events as well. We just have kind of lifted and shifted a little bit of that into online events. And I can't say where I see it going. I see the trends for online with no thought for when in-person is going to come back. And so we're just kind of looking at other things right now on being flexible. And so I would say, if I could give you guys one piece of advice, be as adaptable as possible. So, any other questions, you guys? There were some questions, I guess, in the chat that I wasn't seeing. So if you guys want to go ahead and read them to me, I'm happy. I have some more time if you guys want to answer or ask any more questions.
Yeah, you had some things about marketing. But one question that actually we have from Claire, she asked if you have any pieces of advice for those who are majoring in marketing, like what things you would suggest to do while we're still in college, or things that can help us just stand out and be better marketers. Just, it's kind of a general thing, but just any specific pieces of advice you have.
I do. Be a good listener. Be a good listener. Ask questions. The other thing that I've really seen a lot of the trends are is if you guys can take some R skills, learn a little bit, because a lot of the marketing is going towards analytics. So if you can take some of those analytic classes to be able to learn some of that, it's super helpful. So you can kind of see when they're talking about SEO and talking about those analytics and trends and seeing a lot of how you analyze your customer, it is moving towards that. Okay.
Sorry, I'm just like trying to read through some of these questions for you, trying to organize them as best as I can. I guess. Oh yeah. So for like, so you think the best things for students right now, just for like the soft skills you were saying, like being better listeners, and for hard skills, I know you mentioned data analytics, or like just analytics in general. Do you think it makes the difference to get specifically certified by, like, get a certification, or how do you think it's like the best way just to like market ourselves?
So I'm a big fan of certifications, and I will say I had a faculty member I was working with say to me one time, if you have a bachelor's degree and you add a certification on top of it, it will make you stand out more to an employer, because what it shows is it shows that you actually know the skills that they're asking for on your on the application. So if you're applying for something and it's asking if you have a particular skill, if you can show a certification in it, it's going to make you stand out to the employer. So yes, if you have the opportunity to certify, I would say absolutely go through and certify. Like the hard, like I said, the soft skills. Be personable, ask questions, be collaborative. Don't get set in your ways. I think one of the biggest things that we like is the more adaptive you can be, the more creative you can be. And I think the thing that it took me a while to learn is do not be afraid to fail. One of my biggest successes in my entire career came after one of the biggest failures I had. And so be okay to fail. Failure is totally fine. And I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice I can give you guys. And I'm coming from being this massive perfectionist, is it is 100% okay to fail, and own up to your mistakes and say, hey, I failed at this. This is what I learned from it, and learn from your past mistakes and learn how to be better the next time. So yeah, I think that's probably like the biggest lesson and piece of advice I can give you guys is it's okay to fail. So yeah, keep going on with the questions. Like I said, I love answering questions.
I have a question. Going back to your event marketing and like your webcasts and everything, what were you doing to attract people to that and like giving them like were you giving them incentives to show up for that and to pay for your webcast, or how are you marketing towards
So
them?
webcasts are free. Because I work in corporate philanthropy, we can't charge for anything like that. And so everything that we market is free. So we have like a quote unquote sales team that would go and do individual marketing, and they would talk to the people. They would do individual invites for the sales teams. We would also run email campaigns. We would do social media, and then we would actually do thought leadership pieces on our blogs. So that was how we would actually go through and market our email, our webcasts. And same with our in-person events. The ones that we would charge for is we would do target marketing based on, we're looking at this particular group of people that we want to invite to this particular event. And so we would have email lists for people that we knew were interested in the past, or a particular, like if the event was in California, I would say, okay, I'm going to create an email campaign for my target market in California based on people that I know that are doing X, Y, Z. And so because we already have established email campaign and email lists, we could do that. And so we wouldn't have to leverage social media as much for our in-person events because we could run those targeted email marketing campaigns.
Thank you so much. We've been trying to market to students more about this series, and just this morning, Cameron, Logan, and Sister Springer and I were all talking about how we can get more students to come to this series because it is so beneficial and we learn so much from our speakers. So thank you so much for answering that question.
Yeah, if you're looking to particularly market to that, I can give you a little piece there.
Yeah.
Are you looking to market? So are you looking to market to existing marketing majors, correct?
Yes.
And then are you looking to target undeclared majors that could major in marketing as well, right?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
would be an avenue to market to, is get a list, if you are able to, of freshmen, sophomores, of people that are undeclared that could maybe be interested in marketing to maybe drive interest in to becoming a marketing major. So that's another avenue to market to as well,
Okay.
possibly.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Target marketing is really fun because it's like a puzzle to solve. And then the other thing you can do is you can do a survey. Like if you wanted to create a survey, we've done those in the past as well. Create a survey to your business department or to your marketing major and say, does this time work for you? Are the topics relevant? What are some of the topics you want to hear? So like we had to, like when we did our webcasting series, we actually had to adjust the day and time because we found it wasn't working for our audience. And so you make little tweaks on that to see what's working for your audience to say, okay, does this time work for who we're trying to market to, or do we need to adjust it in that way as well?
That's another problem we have because most of us are in Hawaii, and right now it's 2 p.m. for us, and you're in Utah, you said, so it's closer to 6. But I think that's another problem, but we're finding solutions every day. So, and we have a lot of participants today, so I'm excited about that.
For me, so for your speakers, after work is probably not a bad time because it's not taking out of your work day. But for you guys, I don't know if it's a good time for you guys. And so I think it's trying, and we have the same problem because we were doing our webcasts to be able to work in the United States and in Europe. And so we were trying to find a time that worked for both of them. So I completely get the problem that you guys were working through. So any other questions that were in the queue? I'm not able to see the chat anymore, but any other questions that you guys have for me in the chat?
I think that answered all of that.
I think that's everything.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Real quick, sorry. Real quick, I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and Tyra, you're a beast.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, if I can if I can say so myself real quick. But I saw the company you're looking for, and my kind of my question is like, well, good products sell themselves, correct? Like
Yeah,
if you
our
haven't
products
heard of
sell
your, I was about to say, like, why do you need a marketing company? If anyone hasn't heard of your company, that's crazy. So like, what exactly are you trying to sell over there? Events that you're planning and stuff.
So the events that we do, so being that he looked where I work, we actually market to our user base, and we market to people that are using what we do. So we're marketing to other companies that actually use where we're actually like trying to ramp up users, trying to get them to upgrade to a newer product line, so like creating white papers, saying, okay, you're on this older piece of software, why don't you upgrade to the newer piece of software so it's going to make your life easier, that kind of a thing. So does that make sense?
That makes more sense to me now, yeah, thanks, Tyra. And also congrats on all your success.
If you actually went and looked at what I do, my particular job is to help students get skills to actually make them more hireable. That's my particular job, which we won't necessarily go into in great detail. So this is a lot of what I do on a daily basis, is talk to students, talk to faculty, things like that.
You're so cool. I already followed you on LinkedIn, so if that matters to you.
That's okay, thank you. So yeah, any other questions? Like I said, I'm always happy to do this. I really do enjoy this kind of stuff. If you guys have questions, you can send them to me via LinkedIn. Anne has my email address. Sophie does as well. So you guys are more than welcome to email me directly and ask me questions. I'm always happy to answer. I was putting my
I think she just put your LinkedIn in the chat so people can find you. Thank you for being open to that. I know we had a speaker last week who did the same, and she reached back out to me and she's like, I'm having amazing conversations with your students. So I think as we prepare for graduation, during another graduation of COVID, like I think you guys, she'd be a great contact to help you. You're making those final preparations, and you want somebody to, like she said, that's what she talks about during the day, is like, how can you be really prepared to hit the market? And there are still really great opportunities out there. I know it's easy to struggle and feel down, but there's still a lot happening. People are hiring. The market is getting stronger. So,
yeah, and I will say internship season for those of you that are juniors to be rising seniors. Internship season is right now. So if you guys were going to be going into internships, like right now, it's probably even a little late, would be the time to apply. And people with internships, no matter what it's in, are always going to be looked at first when you're going to be getting a job. So I would recommend get at least one internship under your belt to be able to get a job. That's one thing I would recommend.
Tyra, do you care if I share your email in the chat bar?
I'm going to give you my Gmail, so it's not coming into my work.
Okay, perfect.
So it's not work one. So it's just the same, but it's Tyra.Crockett@gmail. So if you want to put that one in.
Yeah, of course. There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Like I said, I'm happy to do it. I'm always happy to answer questions. And like I said, I'm more comfortable doing it this way than anything else, and just to answer questions you guys may have.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to meet with us today and answer our questions. We appreciate it so much. And thank you all the students for joining us today and taking time out of your days. And we'll see you guys next week. And thank you again, Tyra, for joining us.